Well, it's time to catch up with the member for Monaro in the New South Wales Parliament, Nichole Overall. Good morning, Nichole.
Good morning, Stephen, on another lovely Monday morning.
It is, isn't it? The sun's just starting to come up out the window. Well, I've just noticed it. I haven't really taken much notice before. Now, you reckon you've visited 90% of your electorate over the last 3 or 4 days?
I have indeed, everywhere from Bungendore all the way down to Dalgety and Delegate. The only places that I haven't had the opportunity to call in, and I'll apologise, and I'm going to get there as soon as I can. I didn't manage to get to Adaminaby or up Braidwood Way and Braidwood Araluen, so they're next on my list. But yes, I did do all of that between Thursday and Saturday, and what a great trip it was as well.
So the areas that you've gone to are that's true farming country. What are people telling you about foot and mouth disease?
Yeah, they're really concerned, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to be able to get out there on the ground to have a chat with our farmers, our land managers, our property owners. They are really concerned out there, and what they're concerned about probably most is that people don't recognise just how serious a situation this is, and not just for the farmers, but what the ongoing impact would be for us all should foot and mouth disease break our shores and get here after, something like more than 130 years. So they're really worried about that, making sure people are very, very aware of what those impacts will be and how long they could be going on. And also, there's much talk now about what the federal government is doing and whether they should have been doing it earlier. And, my view is that, yes, it should have been done earlier, and we need to be moving on this very rapidly indeed. But also, in the absolute worst case scenario that we do find the disease here, what comes next? What's the plan? We don't want knee-jerk reactions. We need to know how we would move forward in these circumstances. And the farmers out there feel that they're just not being informed to that level of detail.
And I think we need some sort of understanding of what foot and mouth disease and how it could devastate our livestock industry. I saw a comment from the Agriculture Minister in the Western Australian Parliament who says, look, everyone's overreacting. If foot and mouth disease gets into Australia, it's nothing to worry about. And the price of meat and cheese and eggs and fish and everything, that'll all come down if foot and mouth. I thought, how are these people running the joint?
I don't know, but they're certainly not somebody to say that sort of thing. That I haven't seen that comment, and that certainly takes me aback as well, because they're certainly not looking after rural and regional areas, because that's not what it's about. And I was speaking with one farmer the other day who literally stopped me on the side of the road just to tell me how concerned he was. He said, I've got 6,000 sheep out here. He said, gets out here, he said, my sheep are gone, my livelihood's gone, my family's been here for generations. And he said, I'm out of here as a primary producer. And he said, whatever his export, and I'm not talking just overseas, but to our supermarkets, to our city areas, what that will mean will be absolutely devastating. I mean, that's their prediction, isn't it? $80 billion over the next 10 years, and that's just our projection.
And that's the point. And I've spoken to Barnaby Joyce about this. I've spoken to David Littleproud, and I've spoken to the National Farmers Federation. And it's all well and good to talk about that $80 billion. But the livestock industry goes. That's the first thing. But then, the local dressmaker, the mechanic, the real estate agent, the hairdresser, all of these businesses in rural communities that are fed by the farming communities, they go by the wayside. But more importantly than that is, how do you rebuild when you're destroying all of that fantastic genetics that we have in Australia, which is second to none? And we went through this with the drought. If foot and mouth disease gets a hold of it, it's even going to be even worse. And I don't even know how you come back from it. Where do you start to rebuild when your bloodstock is gone?
Absolutely correct on every count. And when you think about our smaller communities in particular, so our delegates, our Dalgettys, our Adaminabys, that their entire economies, their local communities revolve around not just the farmers, but that farming businesses, the economy about all of that. That's right. How do they survive in the event of such a thing? And then how do they rebuild, or do we just lose them forever? So this is, yes, not just a problem for tomorrow or next week. Should it get here, it is a long-term problem. I think someone said to me it would take a minimum of 6 years to rebuild livestock and the ability to be able to continue to breed and get back to where they were, at least 6 years. Yeah. So what do we all do in that space for that period of time?
Absolutely.
So please, everybody, just take it really seriously. If you're going to take those trips, if you know anybody who is, you've got to do everything that you can. Think about those who are living and working in these areas and what it means for us all.
Indeed. Now, another problem that has arisen in your electorate in recent times is the lack of healthcare and aged care services. You're meeting with Christine McBain this afternoon to talk about the federal government's plans, and you've also had Bronnie Taylor looking at these things in the last few days. Are we making progress here?
Well, look, unfortunately not, and that's why I am meeting with Christy this afternoon, because we're not making progress. So all of the situation, again, I went with Bronnie Taylor down to Bombala and Delegate, where it's particularly acute down there. We had the aged care centre closed down in Bombala. We've got concerns about what's happening in Cooma. Bronnie and I, before the federal election, had managed to advance a plan where we were looking at $35 million to be able to develop the Bombala Multi-Purpose Service Centre, which works as health and aged care centre, but we need more beds there to be able to cater to the wider area, given that the aged care centre closed down. So we advanced a plan for $35 million to be able to increase the bed numbers, better service the wider area. That wasn't taken forward by the previous federal government. Of course, the new federal government has gone in promising, and somebody did send me a sign when I was down there the other day about the Labor government promising to fix aged care. I know it's been, they haven't been in for a long period of time, but the communities down there are very anxious. Again, they're not getting any information, they're not getting any detail. So I want to meet with Christy to say, where are we at? What's going on? How do we move forward? Even though it's not the state government purview, I'll do whatever I can to assist and back this up, because I need to give our communities, particularly our smaller communities, certainty and confidence in this space. This is another thing that we're talking about, things that are devastating these communities, Stephen. If they can't stay in communities that they've lived virtually all of their lives, and then, to be moved out, uprooted, the anxiety and concern that causes, it's just not okay.
Absolutely.
So we need a plan, and we need to be able to convey that plan.
All right, Nichole, before I let you go, let's finish on a positive then. Jerrabomberra High School may actually begin construction soon.
Absolutely. So planning is now approved. So the state significant development application has gone through. That means that we are going to see construction commence any day soon. Fingers crossed that's sooner rather than later. The one thing that I will say on that, Stephen, is that there's been a bit of commentary about, delays and why it's taken so long. But I would point out a few things on that. The commitment was only made at the end of 2019. Now, my understanding, I'm not an engineer, or I don't work for the Department of Education, but my understanding is that a normal process takes 18 months to 2 years. We've had a little thing called COVID get in the way of that as well. We come back, we've got supply issues, we've got contractor issues, not making any excuses on all of that. But considering all of that, we are remarkably on track to do exactly what was committed to, and that is to make sure that the kids of not just that community, but Bungendore as well and other communities in this area, they are going to be going to school in their own regions, in their own areas, in their own homes at the beginning of next year, as was committed to, and construction will be completed ASAP. Department of Education is sick to death of me pressing them, but really it's been a remarkable turnaround in a matter of years, given everything that we've gone through, and my commitment is to make sure that it is there. Our kids, day one, term one, next year, are at school, and let's go and be positive about it.
Good news. Nichole, good to talk to you. We'll catch up next week.